Good evening. Welcome to the Laugh and Monkey Music Show. Today we have a special guest, Michael Brandvold. How are you?
Great, great. And how about yourself, Sean?
Good, good, good. I'm glad we could talk, and we've emailed each other for quite a while now. I've enjoyed this thing earlier, your podcast, your couple, but your music one.
Thank you.
But I thought we could talk today and introduce people that aren't aware of everything you do, and talk a little deeper about your podcasts and music industry.
Sure.
Do you, in a brief, I don't know, 5 minutes, could you break down what you do to somebody if you first meet them to what your business, because you are a marketing business, you cover all the aspects. What is an easier way to break down to people when you first meet people? Like, how do we, because you have so much to say. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I want to make it easy for people to digest. I want people to go to your website, but there's a lot that you do.
Right. Yeah. I have an online marketing company. Yeah, I mean, I suppose I could do offline marketing, but nobody does offline marketing these days. Everything's online.
Right.
For about 13 years now, I've had my own online marketing company, and the vast majority of my clients are musicians, artists, bands, although I've had a few non-musical related clients. But it entails, especially for musicians, everything from helping them launch and promote a new album or a single, promote tours, manage their social media, manage their website, give them direction and strategy for what type of content to post, everything that goes along with what a musician might need help with. And the vast majority of musicians are musicians. That's it. That's what they do. They really don't put and I'm not saying this as a blanket statement for everybody because obviously there's exceptions, but most of them are not into the business. They're not into the marketing. It's
Well, I
sort of
can
like
vouch for
what,
that. I can vouch for that. Over 400 interviews in the past 2 years. I could probably say 2% of them are really headstrong into
yeah,
it.
I mean, there's always very small percentage of musicians out there who get it. And honestly, I think you can tell who gets it by whose career has gone on the longest. If you're going to be in the music industry for a long time, it's a given. You've got to have great music. I mean, that's just a flat out given. With no great music, you won't last. You
Right.
won't stand the test of time. But if you've been around for 30, 40, 50 years as a musician, not only have you had great music, but either you as a musician or somebody in that band really understands the music business. We've all seen, especially when VH1 was in its heyday, all those behind the musics. And one of the biggest common threads in those behind the music stories is I ended up broke.
Yeah.
I toured the world, I sold tens of millions of albums, and I ended up broke. Why? Because you weren't paying attention to what your accountant was doing, your manager was doing, your record label was doing, other members of your band were doing. It's a common thread, and it still exists to this day. So, there will be musicians who are like, listen, Mike, I don't know anything about the internet. I don't know marketing. I make music and I tour. I need you to help me with what I don't know well. And that's sort of where I come in. And what I do specifically can vary from artist to artist based on what do they need help with? What are they doing? Are they releasing a video, a single, an EP, an album? Are they touring? Can't they tour? Do they have merchandise? Do they need all of their whole internet world built from scratch because they don't have social media profiles,
Right.
they don't have a website? And people might laugh. It's like, well, it's 2023. Who doesn't have a website and a social media profile?
Well,
Oh, a lot.
I
A
can
lot don't.
say the one thing I talk about, I'll interject a little bit here and there as you're saying all this stuff is one of the things I talk about is, and I have this type of the artist too, but when an artist has a website, I always mention because I go on the websites. If I'm going to do an interview, I generally know the artist pretty much, or I have an idea. and I talk about the new stuff. I don't like going back past too much. But what I also like to talk about is like, what are you doing now? Like your website, because some websites are almost like a MySpace ghost town. When you go to it,
Oh yeah.
like it hasn't
Oh
updated in
yeah.
years. That's almost worse to me than
Oh,
having a website, or
it
it's
it
like a
it
weird
it
AOL look to
is.
it.
It is. I mean, if your online profiles, and I will say that includes social media and website, if all of those are not fresh, are not current, are not updated, your first impression to a new fan is this band even in existence anymore? The header on that Facebook page is promoting a tour from 2 years ago.
Right.
I could assume you guys broke up. You still have an album from 5 years ago as your pinned post, but I'm pretty sure you've released new music since then. It's not a professional presentation to have that. And again, a lot of musicians, they they write, they rehearse, they record, they release, they tour, and then they go back into that same cycle again. And they need somebody who can sit here and go, okay, you're off recording that new album. Let me clean up. Let's get this all in order. Let me make,
Yep.
who are these people? I won't mention the name of the client, but I just had an active client where I emailed their management yesterday and I'm like, who are all of these people who have access to the artist bands in town page for managing tour dates? There was probably a dozen people on there. Do they all need access to it? And, management came back, oh, no, you can delete these four people.
But they all had access
And,
to the band's page, like more than like
but
that many people.
they all had access to add tour dates, change tour dates. It could be the same thing of who did you give admin access to your Facebook page to? Oh, well, this person here was an old record label from 3 years ago. Well, then they don't need access now. So, I will do a
Yeah.
lot of that sort of stuff of that maintenance, which many musicians won't even think about.
Until they get in a
Why
fight
does
with
it?
the other member and they get locked out of their own
Well,
page.
until somebody who had access goes in and kicks everybody else off and
Yeah.
steals the page. And
I've seen that a lot.
we've heard of artists that's happened to. I think didn't Vince Neil have an issue a number of years ago where an old fan who was running his social media removed all the other admins but themselves and kept access to his official
So,
page. And now
oh,
he
what a jerk.
lost access. He had no
Oh,
access to his official page. He had to go in, get lawyers involved and lawsuits involved. That's expensive. That
yeah.
takes time.
And it's happening now. I know certain bands. We can talk here. I will mention because I talk to these artists, but they also struggles with their own band members. The dynamics of the band members are locking each
Yeah.
other out of the pages. It's added stress that you shouldn't even be worrying about in
Oh yeah. I mean,
2023. I mean,
I've
that's just
constantly dealt.
bananas.
I've dealt with clients who are like, "Oh my God, the drummer is going in here and promoting his own personal stuff on the band page, and we can't have that." And it's so I kind of step in, and it's like, here's how we can manage that. Here's how we can control that. I will keep an eye on all these balls. I always tell people it's the end of the year right now. Now is the time when things have gotten a little quiet and slow in the
Mhm.
music business. Go through and check to see who's got access to everything of yours. Who's got access to your Spotify for Artists, your website, your social media accounts, who's got access to your email list? Who'd you give passwords to? Remove the people that don't need it. Change the passwords on
Just change it, and
everything.
people ask you for it. You'll know who has it. If you don't know who has it, just change the
There you
password.
go.
They'll
You
come to
change
you.
that password, and if somebody says, "Hey, I can't log in," and you can
Yeah,
go, "Oh, okay, you're supposed to have access. I'll give you access." Or you're like,
right.
"You don't need access." So
Yeah,
it's the end of the year. It is a very good time
I like
for
that.
all musicians to go through and look at and listen. I know over the course of a year, you're touring and all these venues and promoters want ad access to your Facebook page. And that's fine. That doesn't give them the rights to post stuff. But when the tour's over, remove them, take that access out.
Well, I'm
You
sorry.
know,
They
old
want the
band
access to
members,
it. I didn't know that. So
well, so yeah, so when a band tours, a venue or a promoter will want advertising level access to a page because there's different levels of access. An advertising level basically just means they can go in and boost a post and spend their own money to boost that post on your page.
okay,
That's fine. That's great.
I'm
They
not
don't
hip
have
to all the ins and
access to
outs of that
add or
part.
remove people. They don't have access
All right.
to make posts. There are there's different tiers. And again, this is something you should be looking at. Who's got ultimate admin access? Ultimate admin level access means that person could literally delete your profile. They could. They could just go in and I want to delete this. You had a bad relationship with a record label, a bad relationship with a manager, a band member, whatever.
Hmm.
It is not unheard of that somebody goes in and says, F you, I'm deleting all of your profiles. You could have solved that by just removing that access quietly, problem solved, or now you're in lawsuits and legal fights and starting from scratch again. I've worked with many clients who have like had multiple Facebook pages, multiple Instagram accounts because somebody else created it. Nobody knows where they are anymore. Nobody knows what the password is. Nobody can access that page. Sorry, it's got 50,000 fans on it, but nobody can
Yep.
access it. So you got to start a brand new page from scratch.
Then it's confusing. There's two pages, and like so, I'm really into music. So like, if I can't keep up with things myself, I know someone else is just glancing to check out a band. It's not gonna have the time or effort to do it. Like if I'm interviewing
Yep.
you and I have to look up stuff and I have to think about it and not know this stuff, somebody who's more of a pedestrian music fan is gonna be like, I can't be bothered. I'm just gonna turn the radio on. Like
Yeah.
you don't
Yeah.
want to
I
scare them
mean,
away.
there's just
That's the concern.
there's a lot of stuff that isn't music or performance that has to be done almost on a daily basis sometimes in a band's career. And the longer you ignore it, the longer you don't pay attention to it, the deeper the hole is you are digging for yourself.
See, and I've already learned a few things from you. Like that's why people you need to check out his music podcast. There's just so many nuggets of good things to learn. Whether you're a fan, you just want to be voyeuristic and see what's going on in the music business, you want to learn as a band. You need to really listen to his podcast. There's so much information. You when you started doing this, though, obviously the territory's changed so much just in 13 years, even of what you dealt with for media, bands, and labels. Like it's got to be like one of the biggest changes in any kind of industry, especially
Oh,
for marketing in the past.
it is.
It's a different animal now.
I mean, if you've listened to the Music Biz Weekly podcast, you've heard us
Yeah,
joke on there that while we're recording the podcast, the music industry is changing.
yeah.
I mean, it anybody who has been in this for a long time or is serious about it as their career knows this changes so fast. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that streaming didn't even exist. It was all iTunes and digital downloads. Now digital downloads are dying.
Yeah.
They're dying. Listen, people might, this always opens up a can of worms. Vinyl and CDs are
I love vinyl.
not
I've always loved
are
vinyl.
not.
So
Oh, I've got 1,000 vinyl records right
I got
over
300 in
there.
the other room, and I got another bunch downstairs hiding
and
from my
and
wife.
and I
I
and I
love them.
still I still buy vinyl to this day.
That's why
But I
from
was
the
on a recent
70s.
podcast where I was like, but I don't open the vinyl. I don't listen to the vinyl. I
I
listen
heard that
to
one. You break my
Spotify.
heart. You never like
I,
some of them,
I,
like you have multiples.
why I've got multiples of some vinyl, but even when I want to support a band that I really really love,
All right, that depends. If
I
it's a
might
band that needs to be
I
supported, that's different.
I might buy their vinyl just
Okay,
to support them, but I'm still going to listen on Spotify because the truth is it's so much more convenient. It's so much easier to do
right.
that than to listen to vinyl. Vinyl is a collectible. Today, yes, vinyl sales are are growing, but they're not growing to the point where they're going to be like vinyl was in the 70s or the 80s, where we were buying vinyl all the
No,
time.
there's not the machine for it either.
Vinyls, yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, who's got vinyl? Who's got turntables? How convenient is it to take that turntable to the gym when you exercise? You can't do that. You can't take a turntable into the car. You can't go jogging with a turntable. I love vinyl, but I'm also realistic in understanding that physical formats, and it's not just in music, but it's in movies, books, everything. Physical formats are going away. It's just not a convenient format anymore. It's expensive to produce, it's expensive to ship. Digital is much, much easier, much more efficient, much you can do more with digital than you can with a physical
Agreed.
product.
Agreed.
And but you need to look at physical product for what it is today, is like you want to sell it as a collectible. You're not selling it as the primary means of listening to your music. If you limit yourself to only releasing a CD of your music, you are going to limit the number of people who will ever be able to listen to your music. It's just a simple fact. I mean, you know, I've got a vinyl turntable. It happens to have a built-in CD player in it,
Mhm.
but I don't have a stereo system anymore. I got rid of my rack
I don't either
stereo
actually.
system.
I have a CD player still in my car because it was just the last thing it had with the update
There,
on it.
there's
Yeah.
a CD player in my car, but I
That's what I'm having
use
play
the
CDs.
C I use the CD player in my car to hold the mount for my iPhone. So I don't even listen to CDs in
Oh
the
my God,
car.
that's
It
hilarious.
holds my iPhone, which
I don't
my
yeah.
iPhone plays music through the USB connection in my car. Um, that's the reality. We can argue if it's right, wrong, good, bad. It
I
doesn't
don't think it's a
matter.
right or wrong
It
though.
is
What's
it's just
making
the
money?
reality. You live in this world. This is where the world is. This is where the world is going. Anybody who says we're going back to CDs and vinyl is lying to you. It is never going to become the primary consumption method for music, for media. DVDs. You're not the DVD, people love talking about how I own the DVD, I own the movie. That's great. I totally get it. But that's not how the vast majority of people consume.
Right.
It's streaming, it's digital. Um, so, artists need to really, you got to accept it. You may not like it, you got to accept it. You
Do
got
you
to
think?
accept that streaming and Spotify is here to stay. And if you're not on it, you're not being discovered.
I think, and you'll have a better answer for this, but like one thing I've noticed more, like I always thought you coming in, I agree with you. You streaming is a thing. CDs are even less special to me because like the pictures are so small. You can't read the lyrics. You can't do it. So if you're going to actually get something physical, record's great because you can have artwork on it. It's a presentation. It's what it used to be when we used to get them. You've got
Yeah.
a band, the album work, artwork. I used to buy albums because the artwork when I was like 14 years old was a really good metal album. I learned that after a couple being bitten a few times. The artwork always doesn't justify the album. But the point is, you get excited over an album artwork. On a CD, you're squinting. You're like, what is this? So there is value with vinyl collection. I actually play my vinyl, but I also think that with social media, everything came out. You get Instagram, and you Facebook, and TikTok, and then there's Patreon. And I think there's a point where there's going to be, I almost think now it's like a saturation where there's so much out there for the artists. It's like really trying to figure out what's going to work. How much effort does the artist have to put in? How much effort are you going to put in for what platform, for what kind of music they are, for the audience? Like, was like old generations more like Facebook, who like TikTok? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's really kind of splitting down different channels right now, like for social media and viewing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But, at the end of the day, again, if this is a serious career path that you want to make this your life versus, hey, you just want to have fun, record an album with a bunch of guys that you've been friends with, and and there's nothing wrong with that. But if this is serious, you've got to understand and be everywhere out there.
Okay.
The fans are everywhere. You've got to understand who your fans are, your fans' demographics, but you still have to be on all these platforms. Now, maybe
Has,
one of these platforms you're more active on, but you
right.
still have to have a presence there so you can be found if somebody goes to search for you.
Do you handle a lot of younger artists too that say maybe start out like on TikTok and Instagram and then want to move in? Have you handled those kind of artists yet? Like promoting
I,
them and
I will
stuff?
handle I will handle artists of all ages or all
Well,
genres.
my curiosity is how is the transition going? Because like, and here's an example I'm gonna give you. Okay, and I've always wanted this. I talked to a certain artist. I won't mention his name. Platinum artist in the '80s, '90s, big play arenas. But now the band hasn't any hits in whatever 20, 30 years. Still great, recognized artist. But for him to get representation, they wanted him to already have certain numbers on like Instagram and stuff, as opposed to other younger performers who have nothing and have bigger numbers. We're getting representation. So there's been like a weird unevenness from some people. But when it really comes down to it, that artist could still fill a venue. Maybe not the same size. They could fill a nice sized club or a bigger venue. But that other artist that may have all these viewers on Instagram, how are they translating into the real world? Are they going live, or is that just a field that's going to be just mostly just like visual media? You know what I'm saying? Like, how's that going to go out into the future of music?
Well, I think what what hasn't changed about the music industry is artists need to have a fan base. You've
Mm-hmm.
always had to have a fan base, but it's even more important now because the fan base you build now is yours. It goes with you wherever you go. You have direct connection with them. It's not something that a record label has built for you and controls. It's not something somebody else does. Um, so you need to have an audience on all these platforms so you can talk to an audience and tell that audience what you're doing. That's what it comes down to. If you don't if you don't have an audience online across any of these platforms and you release an album, who knows about it? Who are you telling about it? If you've only got 100 people following you, and we know the way these algorithms work, not all 100 people are even seeing what you post.
10 people are seeing it. I don't even
So,
understand the
I
algorithm
mean,
anymore.
it could be 2 or 3 people. I mean, we're talking 1, 2, 3% see stuff.
Yeah.
It's a numbers game. You have to build your audience. So when you have something important to promote, you have people you can talk to. Now, whether that's talking to them through Instagram or Facebook or TikTok or YouTube or an email list, they've got to be there. Otherwise, it's literally just crickets. I've seen it in artists where the frustration just hits them. It's just like nobody's responding to anything. Nobody's doing anything. And I'm like, it's because you've got no fans. Well, I've got 500. I'm like, 500 is essentially nothing.
Mm-hmm.
In this day and age, 500 Facebook followers basically means 5 people are going to see that post, and 495 will never see it. That's wrong. That sucks. But again, that's the reality of what we're living in. So keep building those numbers. But this is where it goes off the rails for some artists is they just see it as a numbers game. So I'll go out and buy myself 5,000 Facebook followers. I'll go out and buy myself 10,000 Instagram followers. I'll go out and buy 50,000 plays of my YouTube
Oh,
video.
you're saying the artist?
Yeah, the artists will do that because they
I can
think
tell when
that
somebody does
not,
it. They try coming on my show. I can tell that. I can look up 1 minute and see the numbers against it. It's like in 2 seconds. I can figure out who's buying their hits as opposed to who's the
yeah,
real artist.
yeah. And that doesn't solve your problem. That actually makes your
No.
problem much, much worse. But those are not real people. They're not real fans. They're fake bots. They're fake, computer they're fake accounts on a bunch of iPhones in the Philippines that somebody is just running a script over that's just over and over and over again. That so in that sense, it's not a numbers game of just get a big number. It's grow numbers of real fans that you can really talk to, that you can really engage with. And the reality of that is that doesn't happen overnight. That doesn't happen in 30 days. That doesn't happen in 6 months. That is years of continually doing the same thing over and over again to build up an audience.
Do you think when man so like if PR people are just going for the numbers, like when they say, oh, example, like a show like mine, right? And they'll look at you and say, oh, I look at your numbers. They always want to see the numbers, right? Like for like guests or levels or whatever. But what happens is, which I've seen it can be really inconsistent, is say a show that can be use me as an example because I won't point anybody out. Me as opposed to somebody may have like 5, 10 times a lot more than mine, right? But they never get press. But I've had so they had we both had the same guest on, but where I'll get like 5 different metal sites press, which goes everywhere, but I'll still have less viewers. But because the numbers are lower, some media people will be stuck in the lower numbers, and then I look at the big picture. Do you think that's a good or bad thing for the PR people? Like for me, it doesn't matter either way. I'm going to keep doing my show. But
Well,
like to me,
you know
I go,
that
I feel it's kind of tunnel vision. I'm like, you might want to look at everybody, not just them. Look at all the shows. I'm not talking just to me. There's a lot of media out there pick up small sites. Don't just cut yourself off. I think, but I could be wrong.
no, it's a as somebody who does PR, um, you've got to start by looking at something. When you've got a guest who can only when you've got a client who can only do 10 interviews and
Right, I
you've
get
got
that.
you got 100 people who want to interview them. Well, the reality is you start sorting them by importance. The ones that you definitely know are worth it go to the top. Then you start looking at, well, okay, I'm going to go to their YouTube channel. How many
Hmm.
subscribers to that YouTube channel? How many plays are on their videos? And you kind of you give it 1 or 2 minutes. You just do a quick eyeball scan of, well, are all of their videos 50 plays, or are there some that are bigger? How many subscribers do they have?
Hmm.
What do they have? Do they have a Facebook page, and are they active in promoting stuff? So you start eyeballing stuff like that. But the challenge is, yeah, people can game that. You know, a podcast could go out there and spend money and buy a bunch of fake listens to a YouTube interview and make it look like they're massive, and that might get you your first interview. But people in the industry
Well,
also are
no.
pretty talented about looking at
Yeah.
what's fake, what's not real. Oh, okay, you got one by me this time. I just deleted you from my list. And I've
Yeah.
done that. I've done that with some of the stuff where it's like, okay, I can never get them to send me a link to the interview after it goes live. I can't find it because I've done Google searches, YouTube searches. I think you're just using this to hang out and talk to musicians, and boom, you're off the media list because
Right.
you've never delivered the goods, is what it comes down to.
And this is a good tool for any of the podcasts that are listening because like for me, like whether I get one or not, or whatever, whether it's you or anyone else, never. This is not just me. I never take it personal. Just keep plugging. So the next question again. You know what I mean? And just keep doing your best. Like don't take if somebody you can't do them or me or whoever. It's not personal. You've got your numbers, you got your sheets, you figure it out. It's an equation. It's never personal. Some podcasters take it personal. I'm telling everybody don't. Just
Yeah, no,
it's not personal. You can't.
you
This isn't
you
personal.
can't. You just keep doing what
Right,
as a
exactly.
podcaster, keep doing what you want to
Exactly.
do, what you love. If
Or a
somebody
blog
says
or write it up.
no,
Yeah.
no big deal. Go on and find somebody else. But the truth of the matter is it's a building game.
Yeah.
You need every podcast starts at zero. And some of them will grow and some of them won't. Now, a lot of times it's just consistency and professionalism. That's what it comes down to is you've got to look professional. You've got to present yourself professionally. If you want to be taken seriously, you have to look seriously. What does that mean? Well, maybe that means you have somebody build you a nice looking one-page website for your podcast. You have somebody build some nice graphics to use on your social media. Um, and and then more importantly, get out there and promote the hell out of your podcast and your interviews in the niche that you are in. It's it's your job to promote. And if you don't do that, there's going to be publicists that are like, hey, you're just going to do the interview and then you're never going to promote it. Why would I care about giving you another interview?
Right.
To your point, you do an interview and maybe it gets picked up by three other websites. I like seeing that. That makes me feel good as a publicist because now I'm getting more mileage out of it.
I mean, to me, that's been my biggest thing. Is that's what's helped my show grow. Because I've never paid for any kind of promotion. I don't pay for anything. Like we're not viewers, everything is earned. But like for me, as an example, so like that's my strength. What other shows have other strengths, and they have websites where I don't, and they have different things. I may have graphics, but I just keep plugging. And that's all I can say. I don't take anything personal. I try to improve every show, and I hustle. And that's all
I
people can
mean,
do.
here's a little tip for everybody who's got a blog, a podcast, a radio show, whatever it is. And if you want to get serviced by publicists and labels, make it very easy for us to find your contact information. And by that, I mean an email address, not a phone number, not a street address, an email address, because you will get serviced via email. Nobody is sending out boxes and boxes of CDs for review anymore.
Wait, you get that kind of stuff for
Nobody,
real? People actually for real? Like people don't just hit you up with like full on links and emails and everything. You don't. They actually send you that.
no, no, I have had, I got to tell you how many times, probably on a weekly basis, where I'm like, oh, there's a new podcast I've never heard of. I go
Yeah,
to
there's
their
a lot.
YouTube channel. No contact information on the YouTube channel. No links to a website or a Facebook page on the YouTube channel. Okay, so no luck finding how to contact that person through YouTube. Let me go search for them on Facebook. Okay, I find no page for the podcast. I find a personal profile for who I think might be that person, because God knows there's multiple people of the same
Oh
names out
yeah.
there, but no
Wow.
contact information. And at the end of the day, it's like I'm going to give you about 2 minutes of my time to find out how I can contact you to say, can I put you on my media list? I got your email address. If I can't find anything, done. What you want is you want your email address, and maybe you don't want your personal email out there, and that's fine. Go create a Gmail account for your podcast and
I did.
post that everywhere. So when record labels and publicists find you, they can just copy your email address. They can add you to a media list. They can send you the next press release. They can send you the next music.
Mhm.
How people start a radio show or a blog, want to review music, yet they have no contact information to be found. Just baffles me. That goes to look professional.
Mhm.
If you are professional, your contact information's out there to be found in 10 seconds is the way it's got to be.
I had identity and all that stuff before I even had an interview. Like I can't believe somebody because like how that doesn't make sense as a person that knows how to use the internet to not have contact information for presenting yourself. Like that doesn't even make sense for any kind of business.
Well,
So
that goes to the professionalism. We on the music business side can look at two different people and go, that guy's professional.
right,
That guy, I don't know. I mean, he's probably just a fan trying to get free music.
I see that a lot too. And really, if you do this enough, you get so much music. You're like, okay, I have to find time just to even preview. Even if it's even better if it's a group you love, but you're like, I still have to find time because there's so much that comes in when you're doing this a true busy podcast. But one of the things I talk about on my show with the artists, they talk about a lot. They have a hard time because they're doing so much media, and they don't feel like it's not special anymore. Like if they're doing a Patreon or they're doing this with the artists and they're doing TikToks, they feel like there's so much out there that is taken away from their being creative, taking time to go record. Or there's a big debate about it comes up on my show a lot would be say waterfall, like do waterfall releases in or an EP or do just singles or do waterfall releases to an album. I think nobody knows. Every artist I talk
Well,
to is baffled.
there is no right or wrong answer. I mean, it's everything everything is valid. It just depends on what your strategy is. And this is why, an artist needs to talk to somebody, whether it's a manager or someone like myself and go, okay, well, what do you think? Here's what I've got. And, we'll talk through and ask questions and get an understanding of what their goals are and what do they want to achieve. And, what are their future plans? Okay, you just recorded an album of 12 songs. Great. We could release it as an album. What is the what what is the possibility of you recording a follow-up in the next year? Oh, that's just not going to happen because I don't have time, I don't have the
Right.
money, whatever it might be. Then I might be like, okay, well, instead of releasing all 12 songs at once in an album, maybe we break it into two 6-song EPs. So now you release a 6-song EP, and when the steam runs out of that EP, you've already got another one in the can ready to go to keep that momentum moving. Now,
Okay.
eventually, you're going to hit a point where you got to create more content, meaning you got to record more music. But maybe you can take what you've already done and stretch it out long enough to buy you the time to get into a situation where you can now go back and record again.
Right.
Everything is valid. I mean, I've worked with artists that have released, you know, recorded 10 songs for an album and released every track as a single leading up to the album release. That's a valid strategy and it can work, but there's also
You better have some good songs.
downside. But well, there's a downside to that as well, which
Yeah.
a lot of musicians may not think of because as a marketing person, as a publicist, I will always the first thing I ask a client is, okay, so what's the story of your release? And the story isn't new music because frankly, nobody's going to be jumping up and down that you release new music. What is the story? Why is this music important? Okay, well, here's the story for this album. Got it. But you want to release every song as a single. Therefore, you're going to need a story for every single you release up until the final album release. You have a hard enough time coming up with one story for an entire album.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're going to put yourself in a position where you've got to come up with 10 uniquely different stories for each track off of that album. That might be easy for the first 2 or 3 singles, but I've seen clients by that fourth or fifth single, they're running out of steam of what to say. They're
Well, that's the other
starting to
thing, right?
repeat themselves over and over again. It's like, all right, now nobody's going to care about these upcoming singles because you got nothing to say about them. You said it all. We pitched you for an interview for the first single. We got you interviews for that first single. You told your story there. Single number 4, we're pitching you for interviews. It's going to be a
What's the
lot less
story?
interest.
Yeah, there's nothing else.
Unless you got a compellingly different and interesting story for single 4,
Yeah.
the people that interviewed you on single 1 are just going to pass. And what you're going to see is your exposure is going to start going down, 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 unless you come up with interesting, well-crafted stories that are unique from single to
Right.
single, EP to EP, album to album. You can't tell the same story over and over and over again. Media outlets like you, Sean, are going to be like, no, I had him on 12 months ago.
Right. And it's not
Nothing's
personal, just like
changed.
me with you. It's not personal. It's just
It's
I
not
need
personal.
to get if I can't bring anything out of them extra and new, it's literally like I might as well just take the same interview and copy and paste it and put a different picture on it because if they're going to say the same thing, no one's going to want to listen to it. I mean, because
Yeah,
there's nothing new.
your listeners are going to go, I heard this already. You
Right.
had him on
Yeah.
12 months ago and he told the same
Same
stories.
thing.
And you know, that hurts you, the media outlet, if you do that. So, this is where, again, releasing singles, releasing EPs, releasing albums, all are very valid. There's no right or wrong, but you've got to understand what each of those entails when you do it. What's the plus and the minus of doing those different releases?
I always like the early doing one or two and then giving some space and then coming back again with like maybe another two at the end, like to really stretch it out, but give it a breather. It's like I like there's so much music. I follow music and I'm like I'm like Judas Priest and King Diamond, like all these releases came out. Like I just miss them because there's so much out there. Even the big ones, there's just so much out there to even get in line. So recycling the album once in a while. I know you're talking about something similar about are you working a single afterwards? But I feel the same concept with the album. Like you could probably still work the album 6 months later and pop up some more singles and maybe you get a break. So it's almost like a new
Oh,
album to some
yep,
people because you may have missed it the first time. Like with the singles, it's the same thing I think with an album.
yep, yep,
It's
yep.
there's a market there.
You've got to have a strategy. A strategy is much more than here's the release date of the album. That's not a strategy. The strategy is how are you going to keep yourself active and talking about your release month after month after month for as long as possible. Typically anybody could probably get a 3 month window for a release by doing
Right.
very little. But you want to get to 6 months, 12 months for that same album, you got to have a strategy of what you're going to do every month. And, I tell clients, I'm like, our job is to sit down and figure out every month what's news. What is new this month for you that we can go out and talk about, that we can do another press release about, that we can keep you in the eye of the media out there? Because the second you disappear, another 10 artists swoop in and take your attention away from you.
Do you think also, and there's some artists I love, I support a lot of times I just do artists just to support them. I want to do whatever. And it may not help my show. I don't do things that help my show in particular sometimes, but there's certain artists that will do things, and I don't think it's helpful for them. They'll keep working the same songs or whatever, and they'll keep doing the same posts on their socials over and over again, and it's the same audience on your socials pretty much. So you're not really working it the same. I almost feel like at some point, even your main fans are like, I know I've heard it. I know it's out there. Like
Well,
you're preaching the same thing. At that point, is it better just to take a break and pull back for a month or two? Less is more
well,
if you have
that
something
that
new.
that that gets to the point of, and this is hard for musicians because the music, the albums, that's their children. They put their heart and soul into it and they gave birth to it. It means a lot to them. But at some point, you have to be able to sit here and go, it's done. We can't get anything more out of this. We've
And that comes
tried,
to trust with you, though, right? As an artist, has
well,
to trust you at that point.
well,
I
they
mean,
you have yeah,
it's important, I think.
they have to be willing to take tough comments and criticism like that. It's very hard for an artist to have somebody go, this album ain't working. It's not connecting. It's not going anywhere like your last one did. Maybe we have to regroup, change up our plan of attack here. Maybe it's time to move on to that next release. Um, you can't keep getting milk out of
Yeah.
that cow. There's no more milk to give. And it it oftentimes it's not because the music is bad.
Right.
It's just, music is a very personal thing to everybody. when I tell a client, I'm like, I can send your music out to thousands of media outlets. I can't guarantee they're going to listen to it. I can't guarantee they're going to like it. They're going to have to be compelled enough to open up that press release, read something that's an interesting enough story to make them go, okay, let me download the advanced tracks here and then listen to it. And then they still have to like what they hear. And sometimes that just doesn't happen, no matter how good the music is.
Or
It
if they
just
like it, no
won't
one else
happen.
wants to hear what they do. I've made lyric videos for videos I've heard, and no one else likes it. Like it's not as big as I think. I've heard it. I'm like, this is a great freaking song. I agree with the label and the band, and I'll make a lyric video, and it still isn't as big, or it's not getting the right press because it's not what everybody is in that mindset at the time. And a year later,
Yeah,
it could be big, and that's the
you
thing.
you timing is everything. Right place, right time, right people. It's a lot of luck.
Yeah, I think it's
Again,
all luck.
you gotta have great music. And I basically push that aside. It's like, okay, if you're going to release this, I'm putting my trust in you that you put together the best release of music you could come up with. Whether I like it or not doesn't matter. I want you to put the best music you could ever record right now, and we'll put that out. But again, maybe you're releasing it a year too early. We don't know that. Maybe times change, world events change, and your music would have been more appropriate a year from now. Well,
Mm,
it is what it is.
right. Well, it's a
Um,
commodity thing, really, at that point, right?
yeah. So getting back to where we started here, at some point, an artist needs to sit here and go, I can't keep posting the same stuff over and over
No.
again. It's not resonating anymore. It's not connecting. It's not getting engagements. It's not getting listens. You can keep shoving it down your fans' throats. That doesn't mean they're going to do anything with it. At some point, you got to look at the engagement, the numbers, the response, and go, it's time to change. Does that mean change to another single, change to another release, change to a different strategy? That's tough to do for some artists because that's kind of like admitting it
Defeat.
didn't work.
Well, I think just give some faith and everyone, I want everyone to realize, listen to this. This is just scratching the surface. This feels like just like a lot of information here, but really, if you gotta follow this Michael's podcast because it's just chock full of every week stuff like this all the time. And as an artist, I encourage you, and if you are struggling with some of these things, I encourage you to go to Michael and and work on these things because I work on the other end of the press releases and how he works things. And he does a good job. That's why I'm talking to you today because I believe what you do, you know. And I think you offer a lot to an artist. And I think it's very, very important to be aligned nowadays with somebody that believes in the artist too, and not a record label type of mindset.
Yeah, you've got to have somebody who believes in you. You've got to have somebody who's going to tell you the honest truth and not tell you what you need to hear to get another 1 month retainer out of
Right,
that artist.
right.
You
You said
know,
something the other
it's
day
it's
too.
it's tough to tell. It's tough to tell an artist that it's not working.
No, but you said something. I
If
didn't miss up on you. You said something really important. I want to forget that you were your co-pilot on your show. I'm sorry, I forget his name. He's really
Jay,
good too. Jay, fantastic shout out to Jay. Good job. One of you guys said you're talking about like working on things. I believe it was you guys said that it's really like being a team. It's not just the artist, whatever. It's like a team. And I think when you look at it more of a team aspect, it's going to be better for everybody. But
oh,
delegating and
it's a
working as
hundred.
a team, you can't look at as one person in charge and then you just point at things. And if this person doesn't deliver because it's not a team. It's kind of them. You tell them what to do. It's not the same. You need to all work as a team, and they need like you or a team to be on the same page with them, and they need to work with you the
Yeah,
same way though. Otherwise,
yeah. I
it's a
mean,
race.
it's only going to succeed as a team. And first of all, a team starts within the band itself. If you've got a band member who's not pulling their weight, you got a tough decision to make. Do you cut them out and find somebody who can? I mean, I've worked with bands who are like, the band wants to tour, but we can't because the drummer's got a day gig and he won't take off from his day gig for us to go tour. I'm like, all
It's
right,
time to be a drummer
I get
or a
that.
touring drummer or a touring drummer. You know,
Well, that's a legitimate, real issue, and and I'm not going to fault the drummer for saying that because that's how they pay their mortgage. But that's holding your band back. That's
right?
that's stopping you from being able to go out there and grow as a band. And are you in this band just to hang with your buddies, or are you in this band to succeed as a business? And both of them are fine, but you got to understand there's a difference between both of them. If you
Yeah,
want to just hang with buddies and have a good time, fine, but you will never get past a certain level.
right.
If you want to go there, you got to get four, five, however many band members you've got, all have to be laser focused on I will do what it takes to get to that next level. And maybe you've got to replace somebody. So it starts with that team, but then that team grows, outside to do you have a manager? Do you have a publicist? Do you have a radio person? Do you have a label? Is that label in this for the long haul, or, does the label stop returning your phone calls the day your album is released because they now know the sales are all done? They got all the sales in your pre-order and there's no more sales that'll happen. So they're done with you. Is that a team? I don't think it is.
No, but there's one or two labels that do that. They're really good. You got a 3 month window for that album, and they help you, and then they move on. That's it, and that's their model, though. That works for them. You know,
It works for them. And that's
I
their
know
business
you
and
know
it
who I'm talking about
works.
too, but it works for them. They're successful, but you need to go into that knowing that that is the model of that company.
100%. You
I
have to
think that's
know
what
that
happens. The
what
artists
you're
go when they're
getting into.
saying they don't know that they think it's going to be this old fashioned record label. No, that's not who they are. They're not pretending that's who
Right.
they are.
That means
That's not their
you,
model.
after your on release day, if you want to keep marketing and promoting this, that means
Yeah,
you're going to have to invest in your album.
right, right. It's
You're
a
going to
one and
have to
done.
spend money. If you
Yeah.
don't have money to spend and the label is done marketing and promoting it, the album's over. I
I mean,
mean,
they still
that's
set
just
you
it.
up. They set you up with a good album and a good team, and they pay for everything. They get you all set up. Certain everything's locked out, but it's not going to keep working forever for you. It's not an endless. It's not like a. It's not a bottomless cup of coffee at Denny's. It's going to have a shelf life. This, and you just need to own it.
Labels will work an album as long as it's still selling. The second they can look at their sales order history, projections, everything else, and go, that's it. Sales are now on a decline. Let's pull the plug on this.
That's
And
crazy.
that's business. And
Right,
remember, you are in the music
right. Business.
business.
Yep.
Business is about investing money and making money. You don't succeed if you just keep investing money and losing money. So you've got to understand how the business works. And that is probably one of the biggest hurdles many musicians need to overcome is you need to understand how the money flows in the music business. You need to understand how the business works. You need to understand record labels are not free money. It's a bank loan that you have to pay back. And until you pay back that loan a label gave you, even if it was only $5,000 they gave you, you are not going to see one penny of revenue until the
Well,
label is completely paid
labels
back
are
for
just banks.
everything
That's what I
they
tell
invested.
people. You know, they're not a creative source. They are a bank. They're a bank,
They're a
and they're
bank.
investors, and they invest in what they think is a safe bet or commodity, which is probably a similar artist to a similar hit that's already out there. It's literally like investors and banks. And once you realize that, you're gonna be in better shape coming in too. You know, I do want to say, I want to take our last couple minutes. I want to talk about your Kiss podcast because it's just fun. But people that have been listening, there's going to be three links. One's going to be the website. The two are going to be the podcast. Go subscribe to both of them. Go to his website. Lots of information and reach out to him. You know, he might be what you need for your band. You know, it's a lot here. There's a lot to learn. It's a lot to navigate as an artist too. It's overwhelming. A lot of artists are overwhelmed, and these are professionals that've been in it for years. So don't feel bad if you're overwhelmed. There's a lot going on.
Oh yeah, I
And you
mean,
need a
there's
professional. I mean, it's not a learned thing you do because the market changes still. and no one,
It's it
this
it
is
it's a lot of experience over years, and
mhm,
it's a lot of, experience in stuff that has worked, but it's also experience in failures.
yeah,
Knowing that, hey, I tried this and it didn't work, and I'm going to tell you right now, be careful if you want to go down that same path.
yeah.
I mean, that Jay and I and our Music Biz Weekly podcast live by our own experiences. We're not just talking high level theories that should work. It's like, yeah, no, I actually did this and it worked. I actually did this, and here's where I found a problem. These are the hurdles that you need to be aware of. So, we kind of live and breathe what we talk about.
It shows. I mean, I have a handful of time because of my own schedule of work and life and podcasts. It takes a lot of time. I have limited time for podcasts, and I went to school for recording and everything else. The music business, I have a degree in it. So when I really listen to something, there's a few fun ones to listen to. You're like the only professional business one I listen to. I have limited time, so I'm very particular about it. And I get what I get out of you guys because you guys are very spot on. It's real life stuff. It's good. I mean, that's the big reason why I wanted you on. I'm like, I don't think, I think more artists that I know need to be listening to this. I need to point more people your way. Because from what I'm hearing in these conversations with artists off the record, you know, and as I do, and what I hear, from your show, I'm like, there's a big disconnect. And it's not that far, to connect the lines, you know.
Right.
Everyone's in front of me. Gotta get together. It would help. So to
Yep.
that point, I want to encourage that. Last couple minutes, your fun hobby is still big is your Kiss podcast. Huge Kiss fan. I don't think I know a bigger fan than you out there.
Oh, there's
I'm sure
plenty of
that
bigger ones than
might
me.
there might be besides Gene Simmons as much stuff. But seriously, you are a huge, huge supporter of Kiss. You've had a huge, probably, I don't know, not beat down, but flood of Kiss stuff over the last tour because everyone's asking questions, doing stuff, harassing you, whatever about it. I have checked out your podcast. It is fun too. I'm just a casual fan, but it's fun to jump in to check out also. Do you think weekly though? Are you going to have more challenges to keep it going? Like talk about new stuff as they've changed, or is it going to be?
We've been asked that question for years. I mean,
It'd be
because
fun, but if
because
this is about fun though, it's got to really feel good and excite you though. Of course, you can make anything go. You're a professional, so you know how to dig it too.
well,
I'm
I
saying, but to
mean,
excite you yourself.
first and foremost, the Kiss podcast, Three Sides of the Coin, is done every week because we have fun doing it. That's
Okay,
plain and simple it. We don't make
tradition.
money doing this. We do it because we have fun. The three or four of us co-hosts get together on Zoom every week and we talk.
So
Now,
knowledgeable. It's ridiculous.
well, and we're fortunate in that, I worked with Kiss for quite a few years, so I've got that experience. Mark Cicchini, one of our other co-hosts, huge, huge, huge long time collector. So we've got experience as Kiss fans, if that means anything. But
Sure, you're
we
invested
we
emotionally.
we get asked all the time, how can you talk about one band every week? It's now been 11 years that we've been doing it. And we're the first to kind of go, I don't know. But fortunately, we picked the right band. This is a band that, first of all, has 50 years of history. We didn't pick a band that had released two albums and
Right.
disappeared after 3 years. No way could this have lasted on a band like that. Um, but then we've got a band like Kiss who, listen, they've had multiple band member changes. They've had makeup, no makeup, back to makeup. They've had music that's been disco and pop and grunge. I mean, they've got everything under the sun to give you
Yeah.
topic points to discuss. But
Books
more
and
importantly,
movies and
now
this and that.
books, movies, merchandise, 50 years of touring. But now people are like, well, yeah, now Kiss just finished the end of the road tour. They're no longer going to play live again. Yeah, well, they also just introduced avatars that they're going to live on forever. And guess what? Now we got even more stuff to talk about on this podcast of how does a band transition from real life to the digital life? Nobody's ever done that before. Nobody.
Right.
ABBA, but ABBA is the model that the Kiss avatar is going to be built off of to become even bigger. There's no books have been written about what works, what doesn't work, what's right, what's wrong. Here's the rules. Nothing. It's being written now as people are trying this because we've said this in all of our podcasts, but no artist 40, 50 years ago thought they would ever be doing this.
No, when I talk to
This
artists, anybody, I talk to like Hair Supply. I'm like, they're like 40, 50 years in. You're talking to them. They didn't think they'd be doing this. You know what I mean?
they
It's
they
like
they they
it's
they
bananas.
thought they'd be
They're like
they thought they'd be lucky if they
they're like 10
succeeded for
songs. I thought lost two
five
albums. Yeah,
years.
yeah,
If I was here 5 years after our first album, we would have been pleased as punch.
yeah,
Now we've got the ability to be here 50 years later, and the demand is there, the fans are there. The problem is these band members physically just can't do it. They're
yeah.
75, 80 years old.
I don't even know
They
how they're doing it
can't
now.
do this. They
How they went on
can't.
stage like that.
So they've reached a point in a career where they're like, everybody wants us to keep doing this. I can't. I can't do this. So how do we move on? Do we get all new band members that are younger and give them the blessing of the name and let them carry the mantle for us? You you can try that. I mean,
I think of
it,
Blackfoot when I think of that. When they did when
but
Ricky
but
Malaki
but but
did
here
Blackfoot,
here's
you
the
know.
here's the thing. That works too. I mean, let's be honest. Foreigner has been touring essentially with nobody.
But they've had no new songs though. They haven't continued on. They've extended it, and members have fallen off, and they're doing a farewell tour. Like when Ricky Malaki did
It's
Blackfoot, and a band went topsy turvy. It didn't work out. He had to get back in his own band again. I'm saying I would love to see a band that's successful, that's going on and done more music, like they can keep going on. Besides just like tribute
but
style.
I think to your point is it's different for every single band
Yes,
based on the band members themselves, the attitude, the demand for that band, the fan base for that band. Um, we as fans in the industry are basically in uncharted territory at this point.
they're the ones to do
That
it.
that that
You know,
that the
they should
name of
try
the
it.
band and their songs can continue on because there's fans out there who want them, but the band members can't. There's a lot of them might be dead. I mean, listen, I work with Foghat. Roger Earl is the
Yeah,
only living member of Foghat, and they kick ass, and they've
I
just
heard some
released
live
a new
footage. They
album.
sound so good. They sound so good.
I mean,
I
is
support
is that is
artists
that
doing that.
right or is that wrong?
Yes,
I mean,
right.
I think every band is entitled to do what they want to do.
Absolutely. I agree.
And it's up to the fans to say, no, that's where I draw the line and I'm no longer going to do it. Rather than the fans saying the band has to go away. Why it's
Yeah.
easier for you as the fan to go away than it is for you, the fan, to make the band go away. If the band loves it, the and there's interest, let those people enjoy it and have the fun that it's worth to them. If it's not worth it to you, here's what we say all the time. You vote with your wallet. You don't vote by making a post on Facebook. You don't vote by screaming on a YouTube video. You vote with your wallet. And what does that mean? You don't buy the next
Right.
concert ticket. You don't buy that next album. If the sales disappear, that's the first thing an artist, any artist out there, will notice. Oh my God, last year we were selling out. This year we're playing to crickets. What happened? That gets their attention. Not some fan ranting and raving in a YouTube video. They don't care about that. They
Or
just
they don't have
don't.
comments on their page either. Even on their page, they don't read the comments. People
No,
need to realize that. I don't know who they think they're
no,
talking to. On my
no,
page,
no.
they make comments to the artist. I'm like, I barely read your comments. Like, do you think they're gonna come on someone else's page? I don't get it.
As a fan, if you do
Money.
not like or support something,
Yeah.
do not spend money on it. That's it. That is how you will get noticed. But
Perfect.
to sit here and demand that, you know, how many bands even in existence today have all original members in them? I don't know.
Literally thinking about like how originally you'd even talk about. I was gonna say almost sort of Def Leppard, sort of from the classic lineup, sort of, but not really, because they
No,
lost
not Def
alcohol. I
Leppard,
know, but that
not
was my
not
first thought
not
because it's been so long.
not
No, you're
not
right.
not ZZ Top.
No, not
Um,
Motley
you know,
Crue, not any of those guys. Not really
not
Metallica.
not
No,
Styx, not REO Speedwagon, not definitely not Kiss. I mean, they change. AC/DC. How many original members are in AC/DC? Even Rush wasn't the original
I know.
lineup
Yeah,
of
that's right.
Rush.
Yeah,
So, at what point do you, as a fan, say it's acceptable and not acceptable? I don't know. I mean, for me, personally as a fan, if I have a good time, it's acceptable. If I know what I'm getting,
right.
it's a fair value, and I left smiling and going, I
Yeah.
had a blast.
I
Nothing
let any
wrong with it.
musician do what they want.
I don't care.
Write what you want for songs. Do what you want. Whatever version of the band goes out, two versions. There's enough room for everybody. Um, I think the problem is I think fans that aren't as in deep music as we are is probably a part where I'll wrap up for you too. I know you got to get back to your day. Is I think that, and you can add to this, people fall in love with a band which they would consider their classic lineup, and they will not let them go emotionally because they were in high
They won't.
school, they were in
No.
this.
Yep.
It's a very emotional
Memories.
attachment, and I don't. They
Memories.
realize it. I'm like, that might have been that band, but then 3 years later, they did another band that half the world even loved even more, or did love us more, but it was even a better album. Like the world didn't stop when you stopped buying their last Pyromania or their last Hysteria, or
What,
you know what I'm saying.
but
They did five albums
but
since then. They
fans
love
also
others.
have to realize what they personally feel isn't what every other fan personally feels.
Right.
So if a band said, "Oh, we're going to change because fan Michael said this, didn't like this, so we're going to change to make him happy," that change, I guarantee you, is going to upset and piss off twice as many fans
Oh
who
God, yeah.
hate the change. So at the end of the day, and I tell this to all my clients, but I even tell this to podcasters because God knows as podcasters we get nailed with people like, "Oh, you could have a better show if you did this and change that." I'm like, don't listen to any of that. Do what you want to do because at the end of the day,
Yep.
you're the one who's going to have your name on that product. It's the band's name on that album for eternity, not the fan. If the fan doesn't like it, no biggie. But if the band loves that album, even if nobody bought it, they can
Mm-hmm.
still smile, they can still be proud of it. That's your legacy as a musician is your product. So you have to do what makes you happy first and foremost, not what tries. And I use this as a perfect example as Kiss fans would get this. When you try and record an album that you think is going to make other people happy, you end up recording music from The Elder, which was a concept album that they literally recorded to show media outlets and reviewers that Kiss was a real serious band. The reviewers didn't like it. The fans didn't like it. The band looked back and said, "Why the hell did we do that? We didn't do it for ourselves. That wasn't us."
There's
You
actually
end
two or
up
three
with,
songs I like on that album, though. I can't remember what the titles are. There's actually two or
well,
three songs I actually like on that
yeah,
album.
I enjoy listening to it,
But I get your point. I'm laughing because I'm one of the
but
few people that
again,
like anything off of it.
you look at the response and
Oh
the
yeah.
business side of it, that album was recorded for the wrong reason. Nobody liked it. It bombed. And that caused them to come back and record an album like Creatures of the Night, which was true to who they were. So don't create your art in hopes that that art is going to please somebody else. because when that is how you do it, it's going to fail.
That is perfect. That is like the best way to end time. That's the best quote. That's the best. Mike, I want to thank you. I'm glad we could do this. Maybe down the road we could talk
Yeah,
again. I really,
I
love talking
love
to you.
chatting with you.
I love
Anytime,
listening to
you
your
know,
time.
I'm happy to come back anytime.
Yeah. Well, maybe next year, later next year, we'll do another one and we can talk some more. In the meantime, people, please, I can't say it enough. I really am a big supporter of Michael's podcast and his all this stuff. It's awesome. But thank you, Michael. People clicking the links, go support him.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
brother. Thank you.